When is it okay to take a life? Some say never. Others have very specific circumstances on when it could be appropriate. But most would agree that self-defense could result in the just killing of another. But what about when the person is already detained? States have the rights to rule whether capital punishment is legal or illegal in the US, and it affects many. It is hard to believe that your tax dollars could contribute to the taking of another's life, but it's the world we live in today. Today I want to talk about capital punishment, the history behind it, the facts behind it, and finally the inherent risk that is behind capital punishment. Throughout history, governments have used execution as a way to control crimes in their population, with some countries still partaking in public execution today. It is easy to understand when people still find this barbaric and needlessly violent. From my point of view, the only reason I could find for making an execution public was to instill fear in the rest of the population. Fear is commonly viewed as an antiquated way to govern population, as it often ends in more violence. But why isn't governmental homicide viewed in the same way? Why are public executions barbaric, but private ones are seen as more decent? The effect is still the same to me. It's still the killing for political power. The first serious stance taken against the death penalty doesn't come until 1763 from an Italian with the publication of On Crimes and Punishment. He states, "It appears absurd to me that the laws, which are the expression of the public will and which detest, punish homicide, commit murder themselves, and in order to dissuade citizens from assassination, commit public assassination." His argument read well to those part of the Enlightenment movement in the US and abroad. Over the next 100 years, key decisions would change the way we view the sentencing on death penalty. With the invention of degrees of murder, the banning of public execution in 1835, and the giving of sentencing discretion to the jury, it became more and more difficult to justify the death penalty. Whereas prior to this, murder was murder as decided by a judge. Now, a group of peers had to decide if you intended to kill this person beforehand and if that warranted your death. This all leads to the abolition of the death penalty in Michigan in 1847, with other states to follow. From my view, as society evolves, the death penalty fades. Why not continue this? 12 states have laws against capital punishment. Constitutionally, it is a moral decision that the federal government lets the states decide upon. We will get back to these states. Worldwide, the US is one of the 5 most lethal civilized governments. The list also includes Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and China, which executes more than the rest combined. Many of these states are also thought to be some of the most tyrannical in this seemingly civilized world. By the end of 2015, more than half of the world had abolished the death penalty. And I'm struggling to find reasoning why the US is so far behind in this movement when we obviously have the most readily resources to get away with it. Today, some of these states that have abolished the death penalty have reinstated it into their law. But across the board, year after year, states without the death penalty have lower murder rates than those with, which would go against the very logic behind the death penalty. Aren't people supposed to be afraid of the death penalty and be drawn away from murder? Well, many would argue that there has never been proof of this on a societal level. Some would say, is it cheaper to execute a criminal than support him for life? Well, in Texas, each execution costs $2.3 million, and in Florida, it averages around $3.4 million. This is about 5 times more than detaining him for life. Lastly, since the advances in DNA testing, 4% of detainees have been found not guilty of their charges. Even with a justice system focused on freeing the innocent and even the guilty in some cases, the innocent are still being detained. Could you be so naive to think that our capital punishment hearings are any different? By legalizing capital punishment, you're opening up a certain portion of your population to be executed for a crime they didn't commit. I find that hard to say it's worth it. I believe the US is on the wrong side of a worldwide movement to move past the death penalty. The pros are few and the cons astronomical. Any government that views the innocent lives as a necessary casualty in the hunt for the guilty is a government that needs introspection. If we want to lead the world as we do in many fields, we must take care of even the lowest in our society. Thank you.